Hi everyone, and welcome to the latest monologue in the spiritual problems series. It's been a bit of time since the last one because there's so much happening in Kenya, and it's such a challenge making sense of it. And I had to refer to one of my own earlier monologues that illustrates a big challenge we have in Kenya of thinking of challenges in a granular form or singular form rather than in a cyclic manner. Um, Now, here talk about our spiritual sort of status as Kenyans, and how it factors into all the challenges that we face as a society. Now, it is said that sometime in the 1970s, the former president of Tanzania, the late Julius Kambarage Nyerere, referred to Kenya as a man eat man society, and this was in the period leading up to the breakup of the original East African community. And for a long time, I never understood what that is. But now I get to understand what he meant. I thought he just meant sort of rampant capitalism, being that Tanzania was socialist leaning at the time, and I assumed that to be the case. But if you look at recent events, you realize it means Kenya is sort of cannibalistic. Kenyan society is sort of cannibalistic. Now, this is where my thinking comes from. Countries compete. Countries compete. They shouldn't, but countries compete over resources, trade, etc., etc. Kenya is not known for being competitive out there, but Kenya is very avaricious when it comes to eating our own. And this is let me give some illustrations at the individual level. Why are pyramid schemes so successful in Kenya over the years? One would always wonder, how do these scammers come with these tall tales and convince people, educated people? I'm not talking of sort of uninformed people, educated people, to invest a lot of their earnings, hard-earned money, and serious amounts of money in it. This is the answer. Most people are brought into pyramid schemes by their own, by their son, the brother, the husband, the wife. Someone close to you is the one who convinces you that that scam is actually going to get you some money. And they don't convince you that the scam is good. They convince you that let's get in and scam others before they scam us. So let's get in at the top and be one of the beneficiaries, one of the Ponzi's rather than the victims. And that's why these schemes get so successful and get so much money off Kenyans. It's because the trust is the scheme is spread across the society by people who are trusted by the victims. Someone's brought in by his mother, his father, etc. And you're the one who knows that your brother has a saving of 5 million shillings and he can put it into this, and you will get the gains that they offer you for bringing in new investors. That's how it works. And let's move to the national scale. The national scale of corruption. It's amazing how they take advantage of our systems. When something's brought in, often meaning well, someone's always there to find a loophole, or maybe the loophole is put in, find a loophole through which it can be exploited. Kenya needed to boost their foreign exchange earnings in the early 90s, and needed to do more exports to bring in foreign exchange. So the government brought in some export compensation scheme where you'd be given tax breaks and some monetary compensations attached to the monetary value of whatever you export. So this guy Kamlesh Patni, then a young man, came up with this scheme that is going to be exporting gold and diamonds out of Kenya. And note, gold and diamonds, very high financial value, so high compensation. Now Kenya has only minimal gold deposits, very artisanal type of mining, and almost no diamond deposits that I know of. But Kamlesh Patni argued at the time that the world's biggest traders in diamonds are the Netherlands and Belgium, which is true. And neither of these countries have any diamonds of their own. But the truth is that they make billions of dollars out of trading other people's diamonds, often obtained the so-called blood diamonds. So it seemed viable to whoever, and he managed to convince the president of it. And so the scheme took off, and the money just rolled in. He just kept getting compensation, compensation, and compensation on top of compensation. But he wasn't exporting anything. He was just pushing papers around. A brilliant scheme, if we are to use that term, evil genius. But he made a lot of money literally out of thin air, and shared it around with both sides of the political divide at the time. I remember even the opposition then was led by the late Jaramogi Odinga, and Patni gave him a few millions of shillings and gave money also to Kanu operatives. So he was very safe. It was a long inquiry, but no one was convicted of anything or jailed, because if you look at it strictly from a legal standpoint, no laws were broken. There could be no proof of law breaking. And we come ahead and we look at what government does right now, with the education system purportedly to prepare our children to work for other people, to create for other people. Look at our agriculture system, relentless promotion of of crops that meet other people's needs and not ours. And I'm talking of the so-called cash crops, or what I call slave crops, including pyrethrum, including flowers, um, tea, coffee, etc., that do not contribute to our food security. We have to sell them to get money and use the money to buy food. A ridiculous situation. But that's what we do. Our system, whole system is created and geared towards exploiting our own. Sometimes so literally. Even our national blood bank some years ago actually was found to have sold some of the blood we willingly donated for the welfare of our compatriots. So this has percolated all through Kenya. So it's puzzled me for some time why I look at policy decisions and I cannot find a Kenyan reason for them. It's because we are a man eat to correct the late Nyerere. We are not a man eat man society. We are a man eat self society, a cannibalistic society. Look at the recent deal that's being discussed. The deal with the Adani Group to take over various infrastructure, including power lines and most notably Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. The deal was never meant to work. If you look at the apologetic and clumsy way the CS was addressing the legislature about it, it was never meant to work. The key thing in that deal is the clause that says any judicial challenges or hurdles that this deal meets have to be monetarily compensated to the Adani Group. If there's no participation, public participation, if there's no disclosure and following of the law in this deal, it will be brought to court, and as is the duty of the court, they will stop it. Then compensation will have to be paid. And if you look at the document, it doesn't stipulate any amount. It says they will calculate what to be paid. So these guys are actually using our own judiciary to bilk us of money. Man eats self society. We recklessly eat our own. And unfortunately, this is an experiment that cannot be done, but it fascinates me as a scholar. That if at all the slave trade still existed today, what would Kenya government's position be on selling our young and strong people to go and toil in foreign lands? what do you think our position would be? Would we chase those slave ships away from our port with our navy? Or would we actually create training schools where we can train them to either pick cotton or grow groundnuts or herd animals, whatever those countries may need? Wouldn't we create training schools to train them and add value to them? For those who need domestic workers or those who need models, wouldn't we create training schools and give them training on how to be models? Wouldn't we even put makeup on them and put them in an auction at Mombasa, similar to the coffee auction and tea auction we have in Mombasa? That's a question. It's a rhetorical question, but we should all think about it. Really, if slave trade existed today, remember what Ambassador Macharia Kamau said when there were all these Kenyan ladies being killed in the Middle East, working as domestic workers being killed in the Middle East. Didn't he say that they should learn not to antagonize their employers? Not a word of sympathy. And even to this day, has there ever been any proper action you can talk of taken by the Kenya government against the mistreatment of Kenyan workers working abroad? This is the man eat self society. So it has become so normal that we've become victim blamers. When one is a victim of this man eat self society or these cannibalistic tendencies, we tend to blame them. Look at the way we stuff kids in school. And then a recent tragic fire broke out in a school in Endarasha, with the sad loss of a number of young lives. You saw the chorus that came out immediately after that. Instead of the chorus against lack of safety equipment in schools, it was a chorus, what kind of parents are you who take your kids to boarding school? And this chorus came up from mainly from the middle class, those who are very good at calling our country a leader of sorts in the region. Yes, how do you take your kid to boarding school? And I started asking, like, where are kids who are born in, I used an example like Merile in Marsabit, where are they meant to go to school? Where are kids born in Todonyang meant to go to school? Or Kapedo? Where are they meant to go to school? And some people had the temerity to say that the government should develop day schools in every place so that kids go to school. That you are taking upon yourself to condemn the kid in Merile to only get education in Merile. Why shouldn't he go to a school in Nairobi? In the United States, they actually have this kind of apartheid where kids from poor areas only go to poor schools because they are not allowed to go to another so-called school district. But this is what we are. We blame the victims. Whenever there's cases even of assault on women in Kenya, we always hear, what was she wearing? Why was she passing along that? Why was she walking home at night? She may not even have had bus fare. Why was she walking home at night? Why was she passing such and such a place? We don't talk about why can't the state provide security for anyone who chooses to walk by any road at 2 a.m. or whatever, for whatever reason. It's because we've become a cannibalistic society. We cannibalize even our own children. When the government introduces a fictitious, flawed educational system, we don't ask what are they doing. We don't ask the schools what are they doing. We just ask, what do you need us to buy? And the more you ask to buy, inwardly, the middle class actually get happier, because that means more of the lower class kids are dropping out. We asked to do something on computer, he's happy because that there are only very few kids who have access to computers, and it means my kid has less competition. Cannibalistic society. That is what we are. When you see us confronted with social problems, you see people, instead of protesting against the poor governance that we may have, you see people blaming, oh, why did you vote for them? You deserve to pay those high taxes. Not to mention that the person saying that is also paying the same taxes. Rather than acknowledge that the person who voted for whoever is making those decisions believed this person to have a good plan and has been betrayed. But why did you vote for them? When our opposition chooses to jump into bed with the government, we say yes, they're entitled to. They should also have a chance at the feeding trough. Cannibalistic society. So whenever we seem to only protest at problems in society because we are somehow excluded from it. I, in the field of conservation, have spoken out about the evils of conservancies for years now, for about a decade. But still, people go out and sign those agreements. Then when it goes wrong, not if it goes wrong, because they all go wrong, they're not sustainable. They keep coming to me asking for help in one way or another, always after the agreement is signed. When are we going to take responsibility and stop being cannibals? It's just that you signed the agreement to eat your people. You thought you were at the table, but you found that you are on the menu. You found that your children have lost their birthright. Then suddenly, this is a problem. We are a cannibalistic society. And this is why we have all these problems. We must wake up and take responsibility. We are so cannibalistic, we can even feed our own children to the system. We cannot even take over, and I'm talking about our own biological children. Look at those talking, how do you take kids to boarding school? They put their kids on a bus at 4 a.m. because they are sending the kid to a day school at the other end of Nairobi. And that's the time the bus has to pick them up, or 5. So the kid wakes up at 4. So is that really nice for the kid? What kid grows up healthy without any lack of sleep, without getting enough sleep, with all these ridiculous projects they're being given to do in CBC? Instead of complaining against that, you are railing against parents who are forced to send their kids to boarding school. Some are police officers. You are working in Mandera. You can't take your kid over to that place. You might be a soldier, even on the front line in Somalia. Your kid needs to go to boarding school somewhere. There are many single parents. Some are bus drivers, doctors. All these jobs. Some are even working out of the country, but unable, because the government of the country where they are working can't accept their families. So the kid is at home in boarding school. But you blame them because we are cannibalistic rather than compassionate. So let's think about this in the cycle of our problems. Look at even this thing industrially. This started with the independent power producers some years ago. We suddenly had all these independent power producers in Kenya to make up for the shortfall in power production, and they are all based here and they are all foreign. But if you look at it, they were registered in foreign companies, but the owners were Kenyans. Many in the power sector in Kenya are the owners of independent power producers. You won't find a single IPP in Kenya that isn't connected to some prominent politician. And they're here in Kenya and they're paid in dollars. Cannibalistic society, man itself society. So let's look closely at ourselves and ask why we have this problem, because they're all connected. It's a cyclic situation, or a vicious cycle. It's not linear and it's not granular. It's cyclic. So let's not just look at the problems we have. Let's look at the causes of those problems and the origins of those problems. Then we'll be able to address them correctly. Thank you.